Hello everybody. Today's video is about my journey in the fitness world. So when some of you guys asked me to put that down, at first I thought, it's so boring. Who cares about my journey? But then I realized that during my journey, I made every mistake in the book, so hopefully you guys won't repeat them. Hey Philip, thanks for watching. My old teammate is watching. That is quite an honor. So my journey in terms of lifting started. My dad was in the attic watching TV, and I remember this to this day. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator. It's the scene where you see him topless. I was like, what is this? How do I get in? So I bugged the living crap out of my dad until he bought me a gym membership. I live in a very small town, there wasn't much to do. And I started training sort of a traditional bodybuilding routine. I had a very healthy upbringing, like both my parents were into sports. So there was always healthy food, and my mother was actually the main supporter when I started lifting. At that time I mostly lifted for swimming, to swim faster, but also to look better. So my mother would always say like, oh my goodness, you look awful with all these muscles, never get a girlfriend. But then she said, do you need more chicken? Do you need more quark, which is sort of like a cottage cheese in Germany? So the first lesson you can learn from that is you need a supportive environment. That's the first thing I learned. If you don't have a supportive environment, it is very difficult. In terms of training, what we did, we basically trained everything that the big book of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, said. That was our Bible. There was no other information. That we did every workout in that book. So we did the 2-a-day workouts, and we got some gains, but at the time didn't quite know about steroids, so that you can't recover from training twice a day. But in high school I had a pretty decent physique, I think. So granted, small fish, big fish, small pond. Then I went to university on a swimming scholarship and took training and dieting to the next level. I experimented more with more supplements, mostly creatine. Oh, by the way, that reminds me, the first supplement I ever bought was Crash Weight Gain. Not sure if any of you guys remember that. That was a long time ago. My mother threw that out because she thought it was steroids. So that cost me 50 marks at the time, which was huge money. So I dumpster dived and got that thing back out. I was wondering why it tasted so good, and later I realized that Crash Weight Gain was just really expensive Nesquik. So it was just like a lot of sugar and some shitty protein, but it tasted so good. So then, as I went to university, the training got more sophisticated. It was more, sort of like Olympic lifts for the start and the turn. And I was pretty strong. I had, it was like some sort of like a 225 bench, 315 squat, but I didn't have much mass. So like I've actually found a photo. If I can pull it up here, you guys will see. Yeah. So this is me at a very young age. Can you guys see this okay? Yeah. So you can see I had some muscles, but nothing like bodybuilding like or so, which is lesson number 2. What are you training for? That's important. Like if you train for swimming, you look a certain way. If you train for bodybuilding, you look another way. So then I stopped swimming, and I really focused on lifting weights. And at the time, I was convinced, like everybody else, that I was a heart gainer. So I trained very little. Like I did the Mike Mensa, the 10 minutes. Philip, don't post that. I trained like 10 minutes, 3 times a week. I trained the 5x5 because I felt I needed to recover more. That was completely wrong for my body. My body has small joints and is mostly endurance type fibers, type 1. So for me to train like a powerlifter, heavy, because I thought everybody has to train heavy to get huge, didn't work at all. It didn't work at all. I just got fat. I started bodybuilding after swimming. So in swimming, I just built my strength base, and then when I started swimming, I really got into bodybuilding. So I was like 26, 27 already. So that's lesson number 3. Like, you have to train for your body type, and not just because something is cool. Like, everybody was doing the Mike Mensa stuff, and I thought that must be great. And I wasted 2 years, and I got nothing out of it. Lesson learned. Then I started working. I got a real job in finance, and I trained, and I got a pretty good physique, kind of like a classic bodybuilding routine. How did I find out my body type? Trial and error. I mean, realistically, I should have just not been an idiot. It's a good question, Joe. He's asking how did I find out my body type. Just by looking. I have small joints. I'm not a power lifter. Like, stop training like a power lifter. It's just not me. Doesn't make sense. So then I decided, as I became a personal trainer, to do my first bodybuilding show. And that was a really good idea, because I left my tiny gym where I had the best physique, and I realized that I really sucked. Like, I did the first posing shots and really, didn't go well. So at the time, the keto diets were cool, so I jumped on that, looked and felt like crap. So then found another coach, and he put me on a high carb, low fat diet, which worked much, much better for me, which is the next lesson to be learned. You have to eat what works for you, not just because something is en vogue. So generally speaking, the bigger and leaner and more muscle you have, the more carbohydrates you can eat. The heavier and the more sedentary and the more body fat you're having, the less carbs you eat. So during my first show, which was a long time ago, I can blow this up a little bit. So that was me, like, learning how to pose. And you see the gentleman in the background. There's 2 lessons to be learned, in my opinion. The first lesson being, if you train with weights, even if you don't compete, I think it's highly beneficial if you learn how to pose. Posing will increase your mind-muscle connection, and it will give you better results in your training. So even if you have no ambitions to go on stage ever, I would highly recommend that you take a posing class or just goof around with it, watch some videos. Especially for the back and hamstrings, it will make a huge difference. So that's one. The gentleman you see there, Chris Kosick, he was a good friend, he was a great guy. And he shot himself 2 years ago. He was suffering from depression. And the lesson you can learn from that is that muscles don't make you happy, or they're not the savior. So if you're getting into the sport because you're thinking there's going to be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I got news for you, it's not. Okay, so it's a great hobby, but whatever issues that you're dealing with, you have to work on. So that's a more sober lesson. So that was my first show. I did quite well. The issue was that I entered a non-tested show. So everybody was on roids and were 30 pounds bigger than I am, so I was like, whoa, that's interesting. So from there on, I decided I need to be bigger, right? So I started bulking. And that was the next mistake I made. So I believe that after a bodybuilding show, after that, you can eat whatever you want and you just grow magical muscle. Let me tell you, you do not. I got fat, okay? So it was July. I was 250, yeah. It was reasonably strong, but I was fat and sweaty. So I dieted back down for the fall shows and ended up exactly where I was the year before. So the 20 weeks of eating, 20 weeks of dieting yielded exactly fuck all, okay? Which means that for natural athletes, long bulking and cutting cycles don't work. They don't. The nutritional efficiency is not there. Don't do that, okay? Then I took 2 years to improve my physique, and I signed my first modeling contract. You can see some of the results here, okay? So, can you see this okay, everybody? There's a sort of a glare. So, the lesson from that is, stuff takes time, okay? So it took me 2 years to improve that much. So you can't just expect like, oh, I'm going to take 3 months and improve my physique. So it's like, you know, I was also already in my 30s, so stuff just moves a little bit slower. From there on, I had a really good physique, and I had a good business. And the issue was that I started believing my own BS. So I became very self-centered, very, you know, almost drunk on myself. I mean, it was so bad that my screensaver was me, right? So I show you, I actually found this. This is so embarrassing. But I had this picture on my phone back then, okay? So this, just being generally a douchebag at the time, there's really no, yeah, Marshall, I'm telling you, like, real advice, this video is like all out. I'm telling you how it really was. You know, so I made a lot of questionable decisions and ended up in the psych ward, like bipolar episode, total meltdown, narcissistic tendencies, and Nicole, absolutely. And it was like I hit rock bottom, okay? So I financially, in terms of my relationship with my family, my business, everything was nuked, you name it, okay? So then my daughter was born, and I decided I just had to become a better person, or a more functional person, whatever. So I was at the time on Seroquel, which is like a drug for, I don't know what it's for. It's a horrible drug. It makes you crave junk food. That's my point. I was craving junk food, and I blew up to 260. So I said, okay, this is it. So I called my therapist and I said, you gotta get me off this drug. I joined a new gym because the old gym I associated with like bad behavior on my part and whatnot. And I found out that the Muscle Mania was held literally one street down from where I live. So I joined the Muscle Mania and I killed myself. I hope I have a photo. Yeah, I do. I trained like, you know, twice a day. I was on the fish, rice, and green bean diet 5 times a week. And I did it. I took the weight off. This is what I looked like 2 days before the Muscle Mania. Mind you, this is 4 months out of the psych ward. Okay, so 4 months ago I was literally locked up. And I won. I won the Muscle Mania, okay? Why am I telling you this? Who cares? I'm telling you this because you need a reason to lift. Okay? And the reason to lift cannot be you. It must be that there's something greater that motivates you, and you just can't be a douche. Like, okay. So then, the next year, I was in safer waters. I was a father, so I was hopefully, you know, a bit more contained, whatever. And I competed again. I won the Muscle Mania, the nationals. I have a photo here. It's a bit small. Sorry, guys, but I'm doing the best we can. Okay. And from there on, I decided to take a breather with competing. I started more writing and modeling. But that's a good question, Josh. Did it make a difference having a swim background in terms of motivation? I think self-discipline and motivation as a swimmer definitely helped me, because I had many years where I didn't improve in swimming. And I definitely think that made a difference in terms of the outcome, for sure. Good question. So I worked more with some magazines. Like I did Muscle and Fitness. Like here's one of the photos. And I sort of found my rhythm in the sense that I knew I needed volume training. I was more centered as a person in my family. And I realized that you need periodization. And because I was not a self-centered douche anymore, I was actually okay with reaching out to other coaches and have coaches and say like, oh, what do you got? How can you help me? And also helping others. So here you can see, this is probably quite interesting. So there's 7 years between the photos in terms of progress. Okay, so this was on a keto diet, total disaster, and then things got better. So I was able to help others and also myself. And then last year I turned 40, and for some reason I really got the bug, and I wanted to show like, okay, how good can I look when I'm 40? So I took photos with Jimmy Murto. Jimmy, if you're watching, you're a good man. And I came like this. I know this is sort of like a hardcore bodybuilding look, but that's really what I wanted for myself. So the lessons you can learn from that is that the boring stuff works. Okay. The flashy stuff in terms of training does not work, because you got to remember, if there's the NFL and Michael Phelps and they spend millions of dollars on research, like, do you think they have not figured out that there's a way you can only train 10 minutes a day or this or that, the other? But like one guy on Yahoo Fitness or Gretchen Reynolds in the Times figured it out. Hey, that was for you, Paul. What I also learned is that most supplements are crap. Okay, there's like 4 supplements that actually work. The other thing that I learned, like I said, my journey from the meltdown, just don't be a douchebag. Even if you're in shape or whatever, just don't. It just bites you back. It's okay to ask for help in terms of coaching. Like, feel free to ask me if I can help, or find a good coach. That's important. Setbacks are normal. Setbacks are good because you can learn from them. That's also something I learned. You need a good environment. We talked about that. And the boring stuff works. Periodization, getting stronger, the boring exercises. That's really it. So there you have it. That's my journey. Like, as I promised, I kept it real. I told you how it really went down. And by no means am I a great bodybuilder, but I hope that whatever I went through, or the lessons that you guys have, that I learned, that hopefully that is helpful to you guys, and you don't make the same mistakes. So as always, thank you for watching. It's much appreciated. If you like the video, please share it. And on Wednesday we'll be back on the air again. I'm still deciding whether we shall talk about periodization or growth hormone. Both very interesting topics, but so this is it. So this video, I gotta tell you guys, this was a hard one. When I wrote it down, my mother has passed since. So when I wrote about her, that was kind of saddening. There was then Chris being dead, that was hard, and then also like going back and like all the stuff that I messed up. My goodness. So it was a hard one. Well, thanks for the support, guys. Okay, speak soon.